What's going on? We are back. There we go. So we're here live on Small Ball. That was one of the clunkiest intros I've ever had. I think I'm just so excited for today's show. I can't even have my wits about me. I mean, it's absurd. So we're back on Small Ball. We have not had a show, and I'm gonna here notify the world that we are live. Okay, wait. I'm a little bit low on this. That's better. So I'm gonna notify the world that we're live. Thank you for joining me this fine Black Friday evening. So excited to be back. We have lots of stuff to talk about, obviously, because the last show that we had, as I here notify the world that we're live, the last show that we had was actually before the end of the 2020 season. Okay, so we have not had a show during the off season, so that's pretty exciting. Our first off season show, and I'm gonna break it down for you guys right now. We're gonna have all kinds of free agency stuff to talk about. Obviously, we're gonna have all kinds of predictions, things of that nature. Some sort of, some postseason predictions, maybe even some free agency predictions, some mock trades. I mean, we just have everything coming at you guys in the coming months. So let's get started, right? Let's get started. I think the picture is all right? It's not bad. So today, I have some stuff I want to talk about, but I wanted to have sort of like a nice, fun, return to the show. And when, the season was delayed, 2020 season, we did a lot of different stuff here on Small Ball, right? Because we didn't have a lot to talk about, right? We had, we covered all of our off-season stuff, and then we, were in preparation for the season, and the season didn't come right away. So we did a lot of trivia and some games and stuff like that. And I got a lot of positive feedback regarding that stuff, and when the season came back around, we kind of transitioned more into a traditional style. And people, some of the feedback that I was getting was that a lot of you guys, my viewers, missed some of that more fun game-like stuff. So now that Small Ball is back, again, I mean, this is a very mobile show, right? We change it up a lot. I think we're going to do, a lot more of the trivia stuff, a lot more of the, the fun stuff. And I think it should be a good old time. Okay, obviously we're going to talk some baseball, but we have quite some time until it's about 5 months really until the 2021 regular season gets underway, right? So we have loads of time to talk, off-season stuff, as well as time to have some, some creative juices flowing. Okay. Now, that said, during today's show, I'm going to take questions from you, my viewers. So I guess I don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but if I do get some questions, come in via the comments section. When we go into our Q&A, I will answer them. So if you have any questions of me, and I'm going actually to post that on the Small Ball Instagram so that people are aware if they want to send in some questions, things of that nature, they can. So I'm going to start the show today with this. If you have any questions, type them in, and I'll get to them, at some point. The Dodgers have won the World Series. Okay, this is old news. This happened a couple weeks ago. Here's my, kind of reaction. Number one, I think, that we are going to see a massive shift in baseball ideology as a result of what we saw during this postseason. And I'm starting the show today very strategically with my analytics spiel, because a lot of you get a kick out of my takes about analytics. Some people probably are a little bit tired of hearing about it from me. But I think analytics, and I really can't believe that I'm saying this, are going to fade in the coming years. Not into complete inexistence, obviously, right? But I thought that it would be quite some time, if at all, we would see, before we saw analytics fade back and more traditional, intangible based analysis would take precedent over analytics. I wasn't really sure if it was ever going to happen. I wasn't really sure how long it would take. I did think at some point people would realize that we are seeing right in front of our eyes analytics fail miserably and pale in comparison to some of the more traditional strategies that we've talked about. And there are tons and tons of examples of that, and people like to deny that and throw it out. But this particular series was so telling in that regard. And I do think that baseball organizations that have been sort of masking themselves as analytically driven entities, despite not really believing in it. I mean, there are multiple examples of teams, organizations from my point of view that have professed analytics and, talked about their new analytical findings simply to, come across to the media and the general public as, progressive in a sense and sort of up with the times, right? Yet they don't really believe that stuff to be true. I think there are a lot of organizations that still make their decisions largely based on intangible factors, but say that they're more analytically driven, simply, quite frankly, to keep their jobs, right? Because in today's day and age, if somebody thinks that you are taking, intangibles and holding them more seriously and more important, holding them of higher importance than analytics, your job could be in jeopardy. I mean, that's what we're facing right now. But in this series, what did we see? The big one, the obvious one, and non-baseball people are even talking about this. So I don't really need to go into too much length about this. But Blake Snell being removed in the 6th inning, throwing a 2-hit game, and of course that leading to a Game 6 loss that ended the Rays' season. Now, I have been saying for years, 365 days in a year, multiple years, okay? We're talking almost 1,000 days worth of me saying that Kevin Cash is not a championship level manager. And he's largely overvalued and overrated. And what's so fascinating to me, after this took place, Kevin Cash got a lot of slack for that one particular decision that he made to pull Blake Snell. But what was so fascinating to me, almost everywhere that I looked, I saw the narrative being Kevin Cash made a horrible decision, but is still a top 5 manager. Okay, now first of all, people love to throw out this like top 10, top 5, top 3, whatever managers. And then when I ask those people, I say, oh, who are your top 5 managers? They say, well, I don't know, but Kevin Cash is definitely in there, or whoever, is definitely in there, whoever we're talking about in that particular instance. And I say, oh, well, okay, well, what makes him a top 5 manager over other guys? The point that I'm trying to make is people love to have opinions about managers, yet they never really have any basis for those opinions, because analytics people, let's say, which is most people these days, there's nothing really analytical about managers. It's 95% intangibles. Okay, as far as getting your team ready to play, getting your team playing to its fullest potential, right? Developing players physically and mentally. And then, of course, there's the analytical side of when do you take a pitcher out, right? And analytics took some heat after this, because the analytics say, well, third time through the lineup coming up, got to take him out. And I think everybody, even analytics people, agreed that in that particular situation, analytics were incorrect. Okay? So that's not really worth debating. What is worth debating is, was this one poor decision from Kevin Cash, or was there a trend here? And my argument, and I sent out a quote, he's been making these decisions for years. And that's why the Rays, with all this talent, young talent, veteran leadership as well, dominant pitching staff, loaded bullpen, all that you need to win a title, have consistently underperformed. And this year was the first year that they overperformed and made the World Series. Why? I said at the beginning of this season, the 60-game season favors no team more than it does the Tampa Bay Rays, because they have 3 starting pitchers, which in a 162-game season, you're going to lose a lot of games where you're throwing the spot starters going in those 4th and 5th spots. Also, they're extremely thin, right? The bench is really non-existent. That takes a toll on a team in a 162-game season, not nearly as much in a 60-game season. Why else? Because they don't let their pitchers go deep into games. Their bullpen oftentimes gets worn out in 162-game seasons. 60-game seasons, not necessarily the case. So all of Kevin Cash's flaws and the flaws of the general management staff that has created this roster, because there are a lot of positives on this roster, a couple things I don't like as well. All of the flaws, I think, were minimized by a shortened season. That's why this year, all of a sudden, they break out and exceed expectations. Kevin Cash has been making these decisions for years. He has been a complete he's been overpowered by analytics to the point where he couldn't even make a decision so obvious, so clear, so correct in leaving Blake Snell in that situation. It wasn't even a decision for him. And I know this because had any level of thought been put into that decision, I think we can all agree that he would have let Snell continue to pitch at that ballgame. People are saying, what made him decide to do that? How could you think that way? It's very clear to me that there was no decision involved. It was not a decision. It was, the math says this. I have to do this. He has been operating that way since he took the job to manage the Rays. And that is why they cannot be a championship team under his reign. Now, you'll say they were 2 wins away from a title. I guarantee you, if they keep operating this way, next year, 2021, we go back to a 162-game schedule. I'm not sure the Rays make the playoffs as constructed currently. I don't. They said they'd miss the playoffs this year. Then when the 62-game season rolled around, I said, this helps them a lot. I still don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Then they expanded the rosters, and then I'm like, expanded the postseason. I said, okay, well, now with 8 teams, they'll probably make it. Now they ended up being the 1 seed, completely shattering my expectations. I was wrong on that. But as constructed right now in a 162-game season, Kevin Cash is still not the guy to lead them to where they want to go. And they have talent, right? They have pieces to get there, right? But I don't think they have the right guy leading the charge. What else did we see in this series? Well, we saw Team the Rays, the single most strikeouts of any team in 2020, Tampa Bay Rays. LA Dodgers had the 4th fewest strikeouts, so it was a complete mismatch in terms of contact rates. The one game, we'll get there in a second, actually. So this is a team, the Rays, that during the regular season, when they didn't homer, they didn't win. But they homered a lot. They got on base, a significant amount for how much they did strike out. And again, 162-game schedule doesn't favor them. Here's the other thing. Here are the teams that they played in the postseason. The Toronto Blue Jays, youngest team in Major League Baseball. New York Yankees. When it comes to strikeouts and contact rates, not exactly the model of consistency. Houston Astros. 2 gifts early on in the postseason, completely overperformed, in way over their heads, coming off a scandal, and their number 1 player, in my opinion, Justin Verlander, out for the year. Then they face the LA Dodgers, who don't strike it, who move runners, who put the ball in play, who have energy. They were completely overmatched in that series. Had, Brett Phillips not gotten that broken bat single in Game 4, it's a 5-game series, and the Rays have to figure some stuff out, right? But because it goes to 6, now we're giving them some credit that I don't think they deserve. Here's the other thing. We talked about Brett Phillips, Brett Phillips' hit. Okay? Those were the kind of hits that won the series. We saw, in the wild card series, a lot of them. Occasionally some of the division series. We saw home runs play a really important role in those series. But in the World Series, the big stage, it was hits like that. It was hits like Corey Seager's in Game 2. Little things. Home runs did not dominate that series. Did not. Okay? Those 3 things. We saw how the games played out in the World Series. Okay? Largely won by contact. We saw the mistake made by Kevin Cash, and we also saw a team, the Dodgers, that just out-hit the Rays, and the Rays just could not keep up with their contact rates. I think analytics will fade a little bit, and I think that a lot of the teams that have been pretending to be pro analytics will now come out of their shell and say, you know what? Let's win baseball games. Let's do this the old-fashioned way. I think it can work. Now I'm going to transition to this to finish up the show. And I haven't received any questions. Again, if you do have questions for me, please do punch them in to the chat, and I will be sure to address them. But I'm going to finish the show today with this. And this is something that I talked about in one of our, previous shows. But I want to reiterate what I said, because I think it's very important, and I was reminded of it yesterday. I was watching some videos online. I don't even remember specifically what I was watching, but I came across some of the old brawls in Major League Baseball. And I want to discuss this because I think that I finally figured out how to describe what I'm trying to say on this topic. So, if you'll remember earlier in the postseason, Cody Bellinger made a remarkable catch. Remarkable catch in the championship series to rob a home run. And what was talked about after that was the celebration of Brusdar Graterol, right? Throwing his glove, throwing his hat, going ballistic after that catch. Brusdar Graterol, of course, was the pitcher on the mound during that play. And there was a debate. Like, oftentimes there's a celebration in baseball and then there's a debate. And new school people say it's fun, it's exciting. We like to see that, that sort of celebration type stuff. And old school people often say it's a bad look for the game. It's not representative of the game that we're trying to show. And there's that argument. And I'm largely on the side of the old school people in that department. But I came out after that happened and I defended Brusdar Graterol's celebration. Okay? I was 100% okay with that celebration. And what I realized during that celebration is why bat flips and celebrations and showboating are so bad for our game, the game that is baseball. Because when you think of, and I've said this many, many times, when you think of 2015 ALDS, Rangers, Blue Jays, Game 5, what do you think of? You think of the Jose Bautista bat flip. You don't think of the remarkable game that was played. You don't think of the tremendous comeback that the Blue Jays had. You don't think of that seventh inning where the Blue Jays had to come back and score 4 runs after that crazy wild play that the ball was thrown out of play. I'm not even going to go into that stuff. But the point is you remember the bat flip. Okay? So right off the bat, no pun intended, these celebrations are taking our focus away from what we really want to see, which is great baseball being played. That's number one. Number two, and more importantly, think about a bat flip for a second. And some bat flips are different than others, right? I'm totally okay with certain bat flips. But let's take Jose Bautista's for a second. Okay, it's a good example. What does he do? He hits a home run, stares at Sam Dyson, the pitcher, then while continuing to look at him, throws his bat about as far as he possibly could, stands there for another couple moments, and then jogs towards first base. What you're essentially saying in that moment to Sam Dyson, the pitcher, is, I'm better than you. I succeeded and you failed. And I knew that that's what he was trying to say in that moment, and it bothered me, but I wasn't really sure why until yesterday. Because baseball is not an individual sport. It's not the batter against the pitcher. It's a team of 28 players and a coaching staff against another. And in that moment, by Jose Bautista saying, I'm better than you, I know in my head that he is thinking of this game being played as, what do I have to do to show how great I am? And in that moment, the answer is hit a home run. He succeeded in doing that, and that's why his emotions played out that way, and that's why we saw what we saw. Now, if his focus was, let's go win this Game 5 and move on to the next round, I think we would have seen a different celebration. One that wasn't staring specifically at the opposing pitcher and conducting himself the way he did. Now, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I don't want to put thoughts in his head. I don't know what he was thinking in that moment. But I'm led to believe when your actions say, I'm better than you, me as an individual, I'm better than this other individual at baseball, leads me to believe that his thought process was not team-oriented. So when Brusdar Graterol, after his teammate, Cody Bellinger, makes a remarkable catch in a huge moment in a huge game, throws his glove, throws his hat, there are many reasons why I'm okay with that. Number one, it was at the end of an inning. So they're walking off the field going into a commercial break. It was the first, if it was the first out of the inning with other runners on base and the ball still in play, obviously we have a different situation. That's number one. Whether or not he was aware of that, I'm not sure. I'm assuming he was. Number two, I want you to think about what people's emotions say about their state of mind. Like I just said, Jose Batista's actions dictate to me that he is thinking, I just succeeded. I just did something great. And that gives me the liberty to celebrate in a certain way. I look at Brusdar Graterol's actions, and they dictate to me that he was thinking something along the lines of, my teammate, arguably our captain, just made an outstanding catch in an outstanding game that this team needs to win. So to celebrate somebody else is largely different. Largely different. And it speaks to me volumes. First of all, Brusdar Graterol's personality. Okay? He doesn't do that kind of stuff after he himself gets a strikeout. Because when you yourself, when he gets a strikeout, obviously it helps his team, but is it as valuable as robbing a home run? No. So he doesn't celebrate after that, right? He doesn't throw his hat and throw his glove. And Cody Bellinger makes that catch. His thought process is, what a moment for Cody, for our team, to win this baseball game. His thought process is not, for example, when he does something outstanding, look at me, I'm better than you. That's why I'm totally okay with the celebration. Speaks to me largely about his character. And it also says to me, whenever we see these bat flips, I'm reminded now of what's going through these players' heads. And I think a lot of times, there are certain bat flips that I think are team-oriented celebrations, but most of the time, that player is thinking of themselves, him or herself, I should say, in that moment. Okay? That's actually going to do it for today's show. I want to kind of preview what we're going to talk about next time, because I had something else to discuss, but we didn't quite have time to get to it. But a lot of Yankee fans are calling for Trevor Bauer to sign with New York. We will talk a lot about that. We are going to, I think a lot of you probably, if you've seen the show, have some idea of kind of what I'm going to say about that. But we're going to let that sit for a couple of days. What's tomorrow? Saturday. Probably back at it on Sunday for a nice edition of Small Ball. So thank you so much for tuning in. Yeah, we're back. We are back. And like I said, we're going to do a lot more trivia, games, stuff like that. So be prepared to have some fun. Thanks so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, recommend, all that good stuff. Have a healthy, happy, and safe rest of your Friday, weekend, whatever, everything. And thanks for watching. I will see you next time on Smallville. Peace. You'll see me, I should say. Peace.